What up, YouTube? It's JSB in St. Patrick with just some manga review. We are on episode 3, and this is One Piece, chapter 1179. After 11 years, we are finally introduced to our big bad Emu. I mean, God, it's had to have been at least close to, probably, it's been close to, I would say, 10 years since we first got introduced to the character. So it's been crazy, and it's also a little sad because I mean, there are a few other characters like Joy Boy and Nika that we still have to kind of see outside of their silhouettes, but this just kind of shows how much closer we are to the end of the One Piece, and it's just like, dang, we've come a long way. And as far as Emu's introduction, it was top notch. I was a big fan of it. In typical One Piece fashion, we got more questions than answers and more mysteries. And as far as Emu's design, I enjoy it. I like it because it doesn't really fit One Piece vibe, but I mean, for a character like Emu, that's kind of, I feel like that's the look you should go for. I mean, honestly, it kind of looks like he belongs in Boruto. I don't know. I mean, we still have the Black Blob. I'll talk about that a little later. But it was top tier introduction, and as we know, he's just the devil's the fruits. Like that's just his title of DF that he has. I don't know, again, is he like the first devil fruit user? Is he just eat the first one? Is he the one that came up with all these stipulations about being the seawater? There's just so much more we need to figure out with his character and just moving forward, like his design. He has the horns, he looks a little Lunarian, so it's like, is he Lunarian? It's like, because for all we know, it was just King was like the last living one. So, what could that mean as far as his race goes? Why can't he leave the Holy Land? There's just so many different theories that we can think of right now, and I know they'll all be answered pretty soon, so I'm not too worried about it. But just as far as this chapter, man, it was very mind-blowing chapter. We see Emu leaving the Holy Land, and Garland, compared to the other Gorosei, he's very indifferent to Emu ever since he even became one of them. He just seems, while the other elders, they show concern for Emu, presumably because we see what happens as far as him leaving. He's coughing up blood. Garland doesn't seem to really care. He's kind of like, a bunch of shit is hitting the fan right now. He let him go, check it out real quick, and then so I don't know if he has an ulterior motive or that's just kind of his character. But I also noticed that it seems like he notices that a bunch of shit is hitting the fan right now, with Roger, Whitebeard protecting Luffy, Rocks, Blackbeard, Nefertiti. It's just all this stuff has happened, he's been around for 800 years. So in this short time frame, according to him, all this stuff is just kind of shitting the fan right now. So I think he knows something is coming up. Even, Shanks stealing the devil fruit. It seems like he kind of knows. That's why he personally, decided to leave the Elbaf. And then, like we said before, I said before, he's coughing up blood. It seems like it physically pains him to have to leave. When we see him, he has blood dripping out of his mouth. So does he have some type of pact where, he's tied to the Holy Land, where he can't leave, and he can only leave for a short time, which is why he's had to take over Gunko's body, why he's had to take over Saturn's body. But this time he really needs to go himself to check it out. But that's another thing. Like, we've seen him make pacts and deals with all these other characters, and with him being the first devil fruit user, we still don't know. But as of now, we do know it physically pains him to have to leave the Holy Land. It could be if he's close to water. There's just so many different theories that a person can come up with. I would definitely be trying to come up with some. I would be looking at some theories myself, but and like I said, just as far as the look, Lunarian look with horns, what could this mean? There's also just, you know, him being around 800 years, the void century, and then like the callbacks to Skypia. It's just been so many mysteries revolving around this character, and I feel like we're just slowly starting to see it. As far as him going to Elbaf, we know, you know, he's in a state after Gear 5 where he needs food to kind of recover. So I think this is going to be one of those things where, you know, Emu, he's not going to be able to finish a job because he might have to zip back to the Holy Land, and, you know, Luffy's not 100% right now. He probably will end up getting food in, you know, next maybe a chapter or two, but I do think this is one way to kind of have to, you know, write Emu out of the story without, you know, obviously ending One Piece, because, you know, before he lands like the finishing blow on Luffy, he might get teleported right back. So we don't know. I'm looking forward to, I think there's a break next week. So, you know, in 2 weeks time, we're going to have to see, you know, what happens. But, you know, comment, you know, what you thought about this chapter. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think about Emu's character? What do you think about his design? You know, there's so much to talk about regarding this chapter. You know, we've seen, you know, Loki doing Loki beast things, you know, him flash freezing characters, and Ragnar is the only one that can kind of melt the ice. So, I mean, Loki is definitely, you know, just seeming like a beast. You know, we got the confirmation that he was the, you know, Shadow destroying the warships. And I don't think I talked about it last week, but I do think he was kind of just doing that as an honor to his father. So yeah, Loki. And then we also, you know, we found out about Summers having a metal heart, and Zoro's like, you know, if we destroy the heart, will that just stop him? And Summer makes a typical Summer's face. So I'm not sure if that was, you know, Zoro, you know, knowing that's what's going to happen, or if that was just, you know, Summer, you know, being a troll. And then, you know, Killingham is obviously he has a grudge off of Sanji. And, you know, we're going to see a lot more, I think. Goro say, you know, they did say they would come to Elbaf with Emu, but, you know, Emu just told them to hold down the fort. So we have a lot to 1180 is gonna, I think we're gonna see 1180 next couple chapters. I think we're gonna see a lot more. So, you know, I would say Gear Up has been, you know, a whole lot, you know, these past, you know, couple chapters, especially with the final villain, presumably. So it's like I said, it's still just crazy just how far we've come in One Piece. Just, you know, we gone just so many villains, from, you know, Don Krieg to Arlong to just, boom, the king of the world right now. So it's still a little mind-blowing to me, just, you know, all of that. So, you know, that's all I gotta say about the chapter. It was a very, like I said, interesting chapter. If you like what I talk about, please like and subscribe. Definitely going to be here for chapter 1180 to discuss that. And, you know, that being said, JSB in St. Patrick.